We're almost here. The waiting's almost done. Africa's biggest cultural event, one of the world's most iconic national team competitions, and one of the most unpredictable competitions in football is about to kick off yet again. In this week, on Saturday night, we'll see the start of the 35th Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations, or Coupe d'Afrique des Nations, depending on what part of the continent you live on. And the 23 teams will be descending to Morocco with hopes of making all of their dreams come true. We'll be fighting tooth and nail to write either new history or a new name on the trophy. So how better to gear up to this opening day and this week by previewing all 24 teams, all 6 groups, and predicting who will make it through to the last 16 and from there on in before all the madness begins in Morocco. It's going to be a fantastic Christmas and New Year for followers of the African game. Hi, I'm the Football Otaku and welcome to my latest video, and in this video I will be doing the unenviable task of previewing and predicting the group stage of the Africa Cup of Nations. All 24 teams, I will be giving assessments on all 24 teams and all 6 groups and predicting who will be making it through to the last 16. Of course, if you liked the content, don't forget to like, to share and subscribe. And thank you for the support I've been receiving these last few weeks. It's been pretty nice. But enough talking, let's get the show on the road. And we start our prediction and preview in Group A. I mean, where else can we start? With the hosts Morocco, Mali, Zambia, and Comoros. For Morocco, this will be the second time they host the Africa Cup of Nations. The first time was 1988, a tournament Cameroon won. And Morocco will be heading into this tournament with all sorts of pressure. They're the number 1 team on the continent. We all still remember their heroics from Qatar 22. But the one thing we also remember is the stain that was the Cup of Nations in 2024 in the Ivory Coast. A tournament where they entered as favourites and many believed practically had their names on the trophy, only to be dumped out by South Africa in the last 16. Morocco, though, have since improved, and with an imperious World Cup qualifying campaign and being participants in the AFCON qualifiers, they have now amassed a world record 16-game winning streak. Not even the great Spain team of 2008 to 2012 could achieve such a feat. The problem I have, though, with Walid Regragui and this Morocco side is those victories have come against less than fancied opposition. Those are mainly teams that they faced in World Cup and, to an extent, Cup of Nations qualifiers. They haven't truly been tested. They haven't truly faced the best of the best just yet. And if the Cup of Nations and Ivory Coast showed us anything, that you fear Morocco, if they play the better teams, they're not really going to match very well, and they're really going to be much more tested against more superior opposition. Of course, though, the positives is they have the now current CAF Ballon d'Or winner, which is Achraf Hakimi. And also with Morocco, they will have an insane home support, but that home support comes with insane pressure. This Cup of Nations and the subsequent World Cup they're going to host in 4 or 5 years' time is the result of what has been a lot of influence off the pitch with Morocco and CAF and FIFA, whether it be justified or not. And one of the goals that Fawzi Lekya, the president of the Royal Moroccan Federation, is to win this Africa Cup of Nations. And for many feel this is their best chance in 49 years to finally bring home that second Cup of Nations title. They're the best team on the continent, they're at home, and surely now they should bring the tournament home. But a lot of that comes with pressure, and trust me, I have not seen this amount of pressure from the host nation on their team since Brazil 2014. I hope it doesn't have a similar ending. Well, they better hope for their own sake it doesn't have a similar ending. But for Morocco, my concern will be when they match up against stellar opposition, are they going to be the same side? Are they going to be that same dominant team? Are they going to be able to win games a different way rather than just bulldozing a weaker opposition? That will be the question that will be desperately asked of this Morocco side. Mali enter into the Cup of Nations, of course, having qualified, but their form hasn't been very well. I mean, for a team that is, for many feel, the unluckiest team in African international football, they've yet again failed to qualify for a World Cup, so that dream World Cup debut will have to wait another 4 years. But this Mali team isn't like sort of the Mali teams of previous generations, or the Mali team that had, good form. I mean, Tom Saintfiet really led a Mali team that at the end their qualification campaign sort of petered out. I mean, they didn't even make the repechage of the World Cup qualifying in Africa. So for Mali, it's a bit of a disappointment. Their form has sort of tailed off. They do have the likes of Nene and Yves Bissouma, but they're going to have to pick that form up at the Cup of Nations. So they haven't really had the greatest of build-ups as well. They, though, will be a team we all expect to challenge and get real deep. Well, if you think problems in Mali haven't been going very well, Zambia, the preparations have been less than ideal. Well, Zambia, of course, had a middling World Cup qualification campaign. Ironically, they had Morocco in their World Cup qualifying group. But again, many felt they would have finished second or definitely would have challenged for the repechage, but they finished third behind Tanzania, which is a massive disappointment. And they've also let go of their coach Avram Grant. Now, this tournament timing is very, very weird because the tournament being so late in the year, teams letting go of their coaches now really won't have a lot of time to prepare, and even Zambia's form hasn't looked very great. I mean, they did score a crucial win away in Tanzania in the World Cup, but the big thing was they were sadly unbeaten. They sadly lost their last friendly game to South Africa. But then again, I will let it slide in the context of they didn't really bring their best players for that one. Again, the responsibility will fall to Patson Daka, Fashion Zakala to carry Zambia, and really after their Cup of Nations win in 2012, they haven't made the knockout stage since, and definitely now they will have to take that opportunity, but it won't be easy having both Morocco and Mali in their group, although they will have a great intimate knowledge of Mali or of Morocco, seeing that they were in the same World Cup group together. For the Comores, they returned to the Cup of Nations for the first time since their debut in Cameroon 2022. They were in the same World Cup group with Ghana, but unlike that group, they didn't really challenge. Had a strong start, but sort of began to tail off, which was their form as well. And they will be pretty overwhelmed in this group, I fear. But they will be relying heavily on their team spirits. They will be heavily relying on the support, the potential support they could bring from abroad, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how they perform. It's not much has been expected of them, but I think that was the same case in Cameroon in 2022, and they were still able to perform. So I feel that they will be happily take the underdogs tag. How I feel this group will go, I definitely feel Morocco have to win this group. Of course, they will be challenged by the likes of Mali and Zambia, but I feel that they will do enough to win this group. Who joins them in second? I will probably say Mali, since Mali look a lot more stable. Mali look a lot more, should I say, comfortable. They look a lot more together. While for Zambia, the big concern with Zambia is how soon will this new coach be able to get them. How soon can the new coach be able to get the team to gel together? How soon can he get them together, and how soon can he get them playing to his style and his way leading up to the Cup of Nations? And they've had one game together, which was against South Africa. But again, with international football, you don't have a lot of time together. So it's going to be very, very concerning how Zambia are going to get their ducks in a row, while Comores will be sort of the group wild card, but it will take a miracle for them to repeat their acts in 2021. So I definitely see Morocco finishing first, Mali probably a close second, Zambia third, and Comores last. So I definitely see how the group panning out the way the draw intended, and I definitely see this group producing a wild card heading into the knockout stage. Group B sees a bit of a regional spat, including the most titled team in the competition's history, as Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe emerge into this group and to do battle. For Egypt, it's been good times. I mean, they've secured a World Cup return for the first time since 2018. They seem to be gelling well under Hossam Hassan and definitely qualified comfortably enough for the Cup of Nations. Although my big concern for the Pharaohs will be the form and you could say the state of star Mo Salah. I mean, with all the controversies in England and with his sort of undermining or underwhelming starts at Liverpool, it's very, very concerning how Egypt's star man isn't really lighting up the Premier League like he would in normal years. And it'll be very important for him. Can he be able to sort of hit the right form in time? Also, Omar Mamouche is suffering from injury concerns. But Imam Ashur has recovered, not just fitness, but he has recovered well enough to make the Egypt squad. But a lot of criticism as well. Hossam Hassan will be playing under criticism as well because according to many reports, a lot of people do not really side well with the Egyptian international, the former Egyptian international and record all-time goal scorer, and many feel that this Cup of Nations campaign will be very, very, very important and will definitely be huge and very considering for him to perform at the Cup of Nations, or else he might not even go to the World Cup to lead the Pharaohs at the tournament proper. For South Africa, it's all the expectations. They're a team on the up. I mean, 2023, of course, was a huge tournament for Bafana Bafana, middling at the Cup of Nations, making third place, and they've only gotten better. They were able to get the better of Nigeria to qualify for a World Cup for the first time successfully since 2002, and to play at the tournament for the first time since 2010, and they've grown in terms of their player pool. Yes, the squad is now still heavy local, very local heavy, but it's a team that has built itself, a team that has built a lot of chemistry together, and a team that have played a lot of big important matches together, both domestically on the continent and internationally, and they've gained a lot of experience from it. It's a squad that's almost perfect, and Hugo Broos, who is now, you could say, on his farewell tour, now really feels this is the chance for Bafana Bafana to make good on all of this promise, make good on all of the success, and maybe even go further, and maybe even win the Africa Cup of Nations. This is a team that a lot of countries and a lot of teams are going to be looking out for. They're a team that is very, very dangerous. I mean, the likes of Relemo Fukeng, Mohau Nkota, who was a star on the sort of closing run of the World Cup qualification campaign, Lyle Foster, who plays in the Prem, and also Mbezi Lembogazi, who recently signed a deal with Chicago Fire, has become one of the great young revelations of African club football over the last 12 months. So this Bafana team are very dangerous, very, very highly rated, and a team many are expecting to have a deep run at the Cup of Nations, and many are expecting to not take lightly. For Angola, things have gone a little bit south. I mean, first of all, it started at the board level, where Angolan football had a new president, a new leader, and one of the first things he did was to sack Pedro Gonçalves, which is a huge decision. I mean, Pedro Gonçalves has been part of the FAF system literally since 2017. I mean, he coached the U17s in the World Cup in Brazil, their debut at a FIFA youth tournament, and a lot of the sort of golden generation, or a lot of the younger talents coming out of this side, a lot of them were groomed under his watch. The likes of Zito Lovumbo, a lot of these young players that have come through have all come through under his watch, and for him to leave so suddenly, you could tell that it is sort of to tail off in the form. They had a very underwhelming World Cup qualifying campaign, finishing third behind Cameroon and surprisingly Cape Verde. A lot of the hard work has sort of been undone. They have hired Patrice Boumel, a former French international and coach of several African national teams. But again, it's going to be a very similar case to some other teams. And another team I want to speak about in this group is they've fired their coach. They've got a new man in charge. How soon can this new man gel and get this team together, playing together under his new tactics? And yes, he may have had a couple games under the belt, but the Cup of Nations is a completely different tournament, and in a major tournament environment, how soon can he get this team to gel together, to play together, and to succeed together? It'll be a very, very interesting assessment of this Angolan side. For Zimbabwe, the problems are very, very similar. They've had a very disappointing World Cup qualifying campaign, finishing bottom without winning any games. That includes failing to beat Lesotho home and away. Michael Nice, the German, has paid for that with his job and has been fired. And even though they've got this new coach, you really feel the sacking has come at the wrong time with so soon to the Cup of Nations. Again, they've got a new man in charge. He's already coached he's already coached some of Zimbabwe's friendlies, but now they're gonna have to start at the Cup of Nations. And although they do have the likes of the Musona brothers, Kama Billiat, Marshall Munetsi, who currently plays in the Prem with Wolves, although Wolves have been absolutely atrocious this season, still though they'll expect a lot from the Warriors to put a lot of the sort of backroom and sort of unpleasant stuff behind them in order to get the right job and to get them done. I still feel they'll be very, very competitive, and they'll definitely be a wild card in this group that not a lot of people are going to be expecting. So how I feel this group will line up, it will be very, very tight. I see it'll be very, very tight. It'll be very, very close. I'm gonna put my head on a block and say South Africa win the group on goal difference. It won't be a lot, but they'll win it probably on goal difference ahead of Egypt. I see Angola and Zimbabwe will be fighting for third and fourth, but I feel Angola's quality could just be what sees them past Zimbabwe into the wild card. But I feel this group will probably produce a wild card, considering how close some of these teams are to each other and how competitive these teams are to each other. I feel this group will produce a wild card heading into the knockout stage. Group C features three-time winners Algeria, 2004 winners Tunisia, the Cranes Uganda, and the Taifa Stars of Tanzania, completing a now confirmed East African derby match in the group stage. It's been a pretty difficult few months for the Super Eagles and Eric Sekou Shell. They were sadly second best in their World Cup qualifying group behind Bafana Bafana, failing to beat the eventual group winners home and away. And although they did admirably to recover from a pretty poor start in the qualifying campaign for the World Cup, they did well enough and surged well enough to make it to the repechage, where they made it to the final, where sadly they lost out on penalties to the DR Congo, which means for the second straight World Cup in a row, the Super Eagles will not be making the trip. That is a massive disappointment for a country as big as Nigeria, the most populous country on the continent, and it hasn't been helped the mood in the Super Eagles camp and the Super Eagles setup with the sudden retirement of captain, stalwart, and leader of men William Troost-Ekong. 87 caps he earned wearing the green and white, but sadly he will not feature in this Cup of Nations tournament. So Nigeria will definitely be short of leadership. They do though have new players coming in, especially those who are blooded into the Super Eagles squad during the World Cup, the likes of Akko Adams and Benjamin Frederick. They've all looked very, very good. They've all made very strong Super Eagles starts, but it's going to be very difficult for Sekou Shell to again pick up this Nigeria team, who were finalists at the last Cup of Nations, from the disappointment of the World Cup. And many of them will feel that disappointment could light a fire in their belly for them to win the Cup of Nations. You could argue this is the only way for them to sort of win back the support of the Super Eagles fandom in Nigeria and around the world. world. They still don't have a very potent attack, the likes of Ademola Lookman, Victor Osimhen when he's on song, but I think the big weakness is when Osimhen, and we saw this in the repechage final, when Osimhen gets off the pitch, the goal threat for Nigeria goes away, and the goal threat drastically goes down. They also don't have a very strong defense. For all the attacking quality they have on the pitch, they're very top heavy and don't have a lot of defense at the back. They were able to get away with it the last tournament, but Eric Schell is going to have to work super hard in a tournament situation to shore up that defense if Nigeria have plans to repeat their exploits at the previous Cup of Nations, where they were very underrated, very under pressure, but still made the final again. Well, defense isn't necessarily a problem for the Eagles of Carthage. Tunisia have qualified for a World Cup yet again. In fact, it's their third straight appearance at the finals, and they qualified pretty well. I mean, Tunisia always qualified pretty well for the Cup of Nations. They haven't missed a tournament since '94. And not only have they not missed the tournament since '94, being the Cup of Nations that is, they're now qualified for a third World Cup in a row. But this World Cup qualifying campaign was different for Sami Trabelsi's men. They qualified unbeaten. That means that they are a team that do not concede goals. They're a side that, although they didn't really face the toughest of opposition in that qualification campaign, still for Tunisia, they were very, very efficient. They were very much to the point, and very much, although they lack the typical flashiness that we've always sort of criticized Tunisian teams for having, for not being very flashy, not being very, being at times pretty hard to watch, they were still able to get the job done. But they have hit a bit of a wobble. I mean, remember they got grouped at the last Cup of Nations inexplicably after a really, really poor performance in that last Cup of Nations. The Sami Trabelsi again will be playing under a bit of pressure with that Cup of Nations campaign still pretty fresh in Tunisian mind. They were not good in any of their 3 games, didn't deserve to win any of their 3 games, and as much as this may not count for anything, also didn't really set the world alight at the recent, or now the current ongoing FIFA Arab Cup going on in Qatar. So there'll be a lot of pressure for a strong Cup of Nations showing this time from Sami Trabelsi and the Tunisian side, especially with a World Cup looming in a couple months' time. They have to start building confidence, and building that confidence definitely comes from a strong Cup of Nations campaign. The Cranes, Uganda, returned to the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time since a last 16 appearance in 2019 in Egypt, and they actually had a very strong qualification campaign. Drawn with South Africa, they only lost 1 game in the campaign, which was a home defeat to Bafana Bafana, but by then they had already qualified, and they're a side that have been able to really galvanize themselves and had a very good showing in the last few months. Yes, again, the World Cup qualifying campaign didn't go as well as they hoped it would, but they have definitely shown a lot of positives in the last couple months. I mean, they finished in the quarterfinals of the African Nations Championship. Although it may not mean much, but still a quarterfinals appearance at that competition is still very, very impressive, especially in that game against South Africa, where they came back from 3-1 down to qualify for the knockout stage. So there definitely is a positive vibe going there, and with this strong and positive qualification campaign, things have been looking up for the Cranes. They're coached by Paul Put, who is a Belgian who's very experienced in African football. He led Burkina Faso to their one and only Cup of Nations finals appearance, which was 2013 in South Africa. So he'll know his way around the tournament, and he has garnered a team that is very well drilled, a team that don't seem overawed by the occasion, especially from what I've seen in the qualifying campaign. They're a team that do know how to frustrate the bigger sides and definitely know how to take their chances, and they'll definitely be a team that a lot of them will be looking out for. I think the one weakness they will have is the inexperience. None of this generation have played at the Cup of Nations before, which is an elevated brand of competition, elevated brand of football, and acclimatizing and customizing to the competition is going to be very important for them to see if they can progress further. But definitely they will be looking really, really good, but I'll definitely be concerned with the lack of experience in that side. Tanzania also returned to the Cup of Nations, from that same tournament. They also featured in Egypt 2019, but then proceeded to miss the next 3 tournaments and now are back at the Cup of Nations. And it's been a pretty long and tumultuous road for the Taifa Stars. I mean, their qualification wasn't confirmed until literally they left the offices in Switzerland at the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They had beaten a very highly rated side, a highly rated Guinean side, which featured star hitman Sehu Gurasi, but Guinea and the Federation of Guinean Football took the case to CAF, took the case to CAS, took the case to the highest a sports case can be taken up to, and every single time they won. Tanzania, that is. And so Tanzania will officially play at the Africa Cup of Nations despite all of the legal wrangling. But even after all of that legal wrangling, the Taifa Stars, one of their contributions to success, and they had Algeria in the qualification group as well, is that it's bled in from the local league. I mean, if you've seen over the last couple of years, Tanzanian football, especially in the CAF competitions, has been in a huge trajectory, a huge rise up. I mean, this year we have 4 Tanzanian sides in the CAF club competitions, but the flag is really raised by the big 2 of the capital, the big 2 of the country, Simba and Young Africans. And you can definitely see when their squad, there's a heavy link of both. I mean, Clement Nzizi, who actually won CAF's goal of the year, he's in the squad, and a lot of the other stars from both Tanzanian giants are in this team. They are hoping, actually, the fact they actually appeared at the last tournament as well, I forgot to mention that, but they will be hoping to improve from their group stage where they didn't win a game and actually fired their coach Adel Amrouche mid-tournament. So they'll definitely hope to have a greater showing, and it'll be definitely interesting to see how they match up against these other opponents. So how I feel this group will go, I feel Nigeria and Tunisia will definitely I feel that they'll definitely have the upper hand. I feel that they will be the top 2 that will go through. The order is going to be pretty important. I feel if Tunisia and Nigeria is going to be a very important game, but I actually feel it'll be down to who can sort their business out first. And then I have a feeling Tunisia could either win or secure a draw against Nigeria. That strong defense, knowing that Nigeria are in a bit of turmoil, I feel like Tunisia will definitely back themselves to get a point or even all 3 against Nigeria. So I definitely see Tunisia winning the group, Nigeria finishing second. I see Tanzania definitely outmatching Uganda. I feel Uganda, as good as they are and as well coached as they are, I feel Tanzania are just gonna have the better quality, and I feel like my money will be on Tanzania finishing 3rd and Uganda finishing 4th. And for the first time in this group stage, I predict that this group will not produce a wild card. Group D features winners Senegal, winners in 2022, 2-time winners the DR Congo, the Squirrels of Benin, or the Cheetahs, I don't know what they choose to call themselves these days, and Botswana, who returned to the Cup of Nations after their maiden debut in 2012. For Senegal, this is going to be a landmark tournament. This is the first tournament post the Aliou Cisse years. 9 years Cisse led Senegal and led them to their greatest ever moment. Cup of Nations winners in 2022. Pape Thiaw has inherited the side, a Nations Championship winner with Senegal, I beg your pardon, in 2023, that golden age of Senegalese football where they were just the champions of Africa in all things football. And he's inherited a Senegal side that, although a lot of the stalwarts of the team are sort of this, you'd feel their last Cup of Nations, there's a new breed of Senegalese players coming through. I mean, namely the likes of Ibrahim Mbaye from Paris Saint-Germain, and definitely a new breed of young Amara Diouf, new breed of Senegalese players coming through, and you could definitely see how domineering they were in the qualification campaign for this Cup of Nations, where they qualified quite comfortably as well. But not just that, but their World Cup qualification campaign also showed just how the Senegalese, not only are they a team that are dangerous, flashy when they want to be or when they can be, or a team that definitely rely on star talent, but they're a team that also are able to dig out crucial moments. And against one of their group opponents, they were able to recover a 2-0 lead away from home to win 3-2. that victory was pivotal to them qualifying for a third World Cup in a row for the Teranga Lions. So they've definitely, despite the sort of change in staff and change of personnel, the quality and the expectations have clearly not dropped for the Teranga Lions, and they've been looking still the same red hot dangerous side they've looked in years past. Things couldn't be any sweeter. I mean, the DRC haven't had it this good since the 70s. The 2 times winners were able to win the CAF World Cup repechage tournament, and they did it in a quite stunning fashion, beating Cameroon by a last-minute goal and then beating Nigeria on penalties. The duality, though, is they're a team that just don't turn up in the big moments, or haven't really turned up in the big moments. I mean, during that qualification campaign, they were 2-0 up against Senegal and proceeded to throw that away and lose 3-2. But the positive duality has shown that they can turn up in certain big moments like they did in the repechage, and they'll definitely, after that repechage result and knowing that they're one step closer to returning to a first World Cup in more than 50 years, the Leopards will definitely be up in morale, and there'll definitely be a much closer and a squad unity amongst the Leopards setup. The likes of Chantal Mbemba, who's the captain, who earned his 100th cap in the repechage tournament, and also players like Cedric Bakambu, who when they made the semi-finals were one of the shining lights of that DRC side. A lot of them have stayed together. De Zabra has stayed together, so there's a lot of consistency and a lot more success. So they're a side that definitely won't be trifled with, and they're a side that will feel a whole lot more confident, and definitely will be feeling that they can do something special again at this tournament. There definitely will be a very interesting to see. That game against Senegal will just be so interesting, considering what happened in Kinshasa. That game against Senegal will be one of the games to watch in the group stage, and definitely it'll be one of the games people will be looking out for. Benin had a very strong World Cup qualification campaign. I mean, for a team, despite that had never been to the big show before and really aren't one of the giants of African football, whether it be through pedigree or through geographics, they were able to shock the likes of Bafana. Although they lost to them home and away, were able to take the World Cup dream all the way to the final day, and a very strong qualification campaign. Led by the likes of Steve Mounier, the former Premier League star, Benin were, you could say, 2 points away, or one or 2 or even 3 points away from World Cup qualification, but unfortunately let it all fall apart. Still though, they'll be very Gernot Raw, former Nigeria coach, will still be very buoyant of making an impact at this tournament, and will definitely take the positives of that World Cup qualification campaign here, especially now having qualified for the Cup of Nations again for the first time since 2019. For Benin, there will be definitely underrated side. They're a side that not a lot of people expect from them, but for those who have definitely faced them, they will definitely be expecting a whole lot from the Squirrels, the Cheetahs. Please guys, settle on a nickname, please. I mean, I can't do this all tournament long, guys. If you guys can't settle on a nickname, please. I mean, this is going to be a long tournament for me for as long as you guys are here. I expect the team to definitely make a lot more surprises. I mean, they definitely had us sweating in the World Cup qualification campaign, and I definitely expect them to be to pull off another amazing upset like they did when they knocked Morocco out in the 2019 tournament. So they're not a team to be taken lightly. Botswana returned to the Cup of Nations, their second ever appearance at the tournament. Their one and only was 2012, and although it's a tournament that they will hold near and dear to their hearts, I mean, they did qualify, but it's a tournament for results they won't really want to remember. They lost all 3 games, including a 6-1 thrashing by Guinea in the group stage. They though are led by a South African coach, a coach who's actually spent a lot of time in Botswanan football. He's been champions with Jwaneng Galaxy, and again there's another situation where again success at the club continental stage has bled onto the national setup. Jwaneng Galaxy have made a huge impact in CAF club competition. I mean, we all remember the one year they were in the CAF Champions League where they knocked out and defeated Wydad Casablanca Casablanca in Morocco, and a lot of that has bled onto the national team, and their performances were very, very strong. They defeated the likes of Mauritania and Cape Verde, who regularly have been AFCON participants in regular tournaments. So to see Botswana emerge from that group was very, very impressive. A group that also featured Egypt as well. I do feel though they're going to be outmatched in quality, especially against the likes of Senegal and even DR Congo. They're going to be very outmatched in quality, and they're going to have to pull really, really special things to qualify out of that group. So how I feel this group will go, I definitely feel Senegal will win the group. I feel that they will have a little bit too much for DR Congo, but I feel DR Congo also will do enough to progress. They'll still have that positive afterglow of a pretty successful stage in World Cup qualifying, and I feel they'll take that good form into the Cup of Nations. I also feel Benin as well will finish very close to DRC. They'll finish well enough. But sadly for Botswana, I feel it's going to be a very long tournament for the Zebras, and unfortunately I feel they will finish bottom. So I see Senegal finishing top. I see DRC and Benin probably level on points, but maybe DRC will score more goals and finish second, probably on goal difference. Benin finished third, while Botswana finished fourth, and I feel this group will produce a wild card heading into the knockout stage. In Group E, we see a reunion of Cup of Nations foes of previous tournaments, as Algeria will take on Sudan, Equatorial Guinea, and Burkina Faso. So we start this group with the Desert Foxes, and it's been cruising real nicely for Vladimir Petkovic's men. They've successfully qualified for the World Cup for the first time since appearing in Brazil 2014, and of course had a comfortable enough Cup of Nations qualification campaign where they were able to get the better of Tanzania and Guinea on their way to this competition. They're a team that already seems set on their principles. They may not be the flashiest team at times, and at times Petkovic has been criticized, whether it be his style of play or even down to his selections, but he's always seemed to make the right call. And not only make the right calls, but make successful calls as well. He's been able to recruit players, the likes of Riyad Mahrez, of course, is still in the Algeria setup, still making big moments and big plays. Mohamed Al-Moura is there, Said Benrahma as well. So it's an Algeria team that, although is getting on a couple of years, 2019 was quite a while ago, but it's still an Algeria team that still can produce in the big moments, but they'll have to really shed the ghost of tournaments past. Since winning the Cup of Nations, they haven't made the knockout stage since and have been massive disappointments in the two previous tournaments. But I feel heading into their first major tournament under coach Petkovic, considering that they've cruised really well in qualifying, not that they've not done that before, maybe Algeria will head in with a new rush of expectation, but also a new rush of hope, a new rush of things to come as well. And I think that they'll be backing themselves pretty well to progress much further than they have at previous Cup of Nations. They, though, will be facing the ghost of Cup of Nations past in their group, teams that, of course, they have met at previous tournaments and have had pretty negative results against in previous tournaments. One of those is Burkina Faso, and for Burkina Faso, despite the turmoil that's been happening at home and with the federation, the Stallions have done pretty well enough to stay stable at least. They had a pretty strong World Cup qualification campaign. We could say we're pretty unlucky by the rule book that they didn't make the repechage. You'd argue that they deserved to make the repechage, considering how we knew they necessarily weren't going to overtake Egypt, but the fact that they ran them pretty close was a real adamant and real testament to this Burkinabe side. It's a Burkinabe side that also is very, very inexperienced as well. A lot of new guys coming in, and they'll be led by Herve Coffey, who, Herve Coffey was when he made his Cup of Nations debut in 2017, was a very, very young upstart keeper. He's now one of the seniors in the setup. Him and Bertrand Traore has become a bit of a veteran amongst the Stallions. They although sadly will have a change of coach. They're going in with a new man in charge who's a local, so that'll be very interesting as well. But they look pretty confident and they've looked pretty well enough, and they'll definitely back themselves themselves, knowing that they have previous with Algeria. So they'll definitely be backing themselves to be able to score important results, especially against a good Algeria side. They'll definitely know that they've played Egypt and have got positive enough results against Egypt. So they definitely won't be intimidated by facing Algeria in their group, and definitely will see themselves topping the group. The third team in that group is Equatorial Guinea. The Nzalang Nacional, the National Thunder or the National Storm, return for a third straight Cup of Nations tournament, and they've definitely grown in consistency, although they've had a very chaotic, since the heroics of the last Cup of Nations, they have had a lot of inconsistencies. The coach of that tournament has left. Emiliano Nsue, who was the captain and you could say the face of that team, is no longer playing international football, whether it be through FIFA or just disagreements with the association. And there's been a lot of turmoil off the pitch and a lot of player turnover with a lot of new caps, a lot of unknown quantities. But they still were good enough to qualify for this Cup of Nations. And not only were they good enough to qualify for this Cup of Nations, they were able to bleed these new boys in and bleed them into this tournament. Unfortunately, though, the one problem they will have was the poor World Cup qualifying campaign. I mean, not a lot of people really expected much from Equatorial Guinea, but it was still a qualification campaign where, based on their Cup of Nations form, you felt they should have gotten better, but again, it didn't really help with some of the off-the-pitch matters and administrative matters that they had to deal with. So it's a team that is very new, a team that won't be burdened by expectations, but they will be a team that will be sort of be thrown into the deep end. There's their first sort of major tournament together, and it will be a team that will be bouncing back from a pretty underwhelming period of time, but now they have to step their game up in this Cup of Nations campaign. For Sudan, it's beautiful, you know. I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Nelson Mandela said it first, but I'll repeat it. Sport has the power to bring change, the power to bring hope where once there was despair. And I think it's been very public to see what Sudan off the pitch has been going through as a country. It has been terrible. It has been horrifying to watch. And it has been one of the toughest things going on, not just on Africa, but on the planet at the moment. But the hope comes from the Falcons of Jeddah, the secretary birds. Sudan have done a phenomenal job to qualify for this Cup of Nations. And not only have they qualified, but they've qualified ahead of much more illustrious opposition such as Ghana. They have also done a fantastic job in World Cup qualifying, although they finished third in the group and unfortunately didn't make the repechage. They still were able to take the dream as far as they possibly could. And under coach Kwesi Appiah, despite all the problems they've had at home, Sudan have really, by their standards, been on the up and up. I mean, they've had a strong World Cup qualification campaign. They defeated Ghana to get to this Cup of Nations. And in the recent Nations Championship, where it might not count for much, but in the recent Nations Championship, they made it all the way to the semi-finals, even defeating Nigeria and Algeria along the way. So they're definitely, the Nations Championship shows that despite all the disruptions of the local league and despite all the disruptions of football in Sudan, they're able to put a squad together that can compete, a squad that can make a difference at this Cup of Nations, and a squad that a lot of people will definitely be rooting for, especially if you know the backstory of the Sudanese side. They, though, will be severely outmatched. I mean, the Cup of Nations is incredibly different from the Nations Championship or even the Arab Cup. So it's going to be very, very tough for the Sudan side. But I still see this group being incredibly competitive. My predictions for this group, I definitely see Algeria finishing top. I feel they should finish top. My second place would probably go to Burkina Faso. I feel that they'll be better. And then I feel Equatorial Guinea third, and fourth, a brave Sudan side, but I feel Sudan will be outmatched, and I don't think this group will produce a wild card heading into the knockout stage. And the final group in this Africa Cup of Nations features the defending champions, Ivory Coast, and they take on five-time winners Cameroon, Mozambique, and Gabon. Well, what a journey it was for Ivory Coast. But, the confetti is swept away and we've all kind of moved on from 2022. And so have the defending champions, the Elephants. They've had a pretty sturdy qualification campaign, and MS5, although still a bit of a firebrand, has been able to steady the ship. I mean, I did criticize they had a bit of a champions hangover in qualifying, but they've since qualified for the World Cup for the first time since 2014, and they've been very, very solid, and they're a team that is very much still stacked with fantastic quality. I mean, the likes of Amad Diallo, Franck Kessier, Sebastian Haller, and a lot of top other players. The Ivory Coast are not short of quality, and they've been able to sort of get over that champions hangover and cruise very, very nicely, getting important results, especially that one in Gabon to qualify for the World Cup. And they're a team that looked very, very steady after the chaos that was the last competition. With Ivory Coast, though, the expectations will be very much tempered. I mean, not everyone expecting them to go back to back. Plus, it'll be the first sort of real tournament of MS5's career. I mean, yes, he coached mid-tournament, but this is the first time he's had the team from start to finish, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how he plays out. Now he'll truly be tested. He'll be out to prove that the Cup of Nations wasn't just beginner's luck or wasn't just being guided by a spiritual force, but now it feels that he has to prove to himself that, or prove to the public that he is a good enough coach and that he actually can lead this elephant side into great things. They of course will be facing one of their very familiar rivals, Gabon. That will be a very interesting fixture, but I definitely do see the Ivory Coast in a much better space than I did see a couple months ago. They weren't necessarily in a bad space, but now the car looks to be moving very, very nicely after a few hiccups. Where do I start with the mess that is the Cameroonian national team and Fecafoot in general? You know your organization, your federation, and your national team are an absolute mess when World Cup failure is not the worst thing to happen to it. I mean, Cameroonian national team football has been the talk of everyone, and not for the football. Not just for the disappointment of failing to top Cape Verde in World Cup qualifying, including dropping some points that really were inexcusable and thus losing the repechage, but it's been the chaos off the pitch. Marc Brice, the coach who's taken them to this tournament, has been fired, and has been replaced by Patrick Pagou, who is a local coach from the local league, who has never coached national team football before. This is his first national team gig. He's never coached Cameroon at any age level. But now the chaos seems to have deepened further, as in some instances Marc Brice is still recognized as the coach of the Cameroon national team. And not only is he still recognized as Cameroon's coach, but he's submitted his own squad for the Cup of Nations that goes against Pagou's squad. I mean, Pagou's first job, his first assessment, his first task was literally to drop the squad for the Africa Cup of Nations, and that's literally how everyone found out he was the new Cameroon coach and Marc Brice was no longer in charge. It's a Cameroon team that finds itself in a very bad position. I mean, the disappointment of World Cup failure is still pretty fresh, but this drama behind the scenes isn't helping at all. Also, some of their squad selections, Christian Bassagog, who's become a veteran of the side, a winner in 2017, the actual top player of the tournament in 2017, is still around, but Andre Onana and Vincent Aboubakar has not made the cut. So it's been a very interesting and very wild time for the Cameroonian setup, and it'll be really down to how quickly can Cameroon clean this mess up, or at least make sure that it doesn't affect what happens on the pitch. But the problem is, it probably will, because how can it not? So I feel for Cameroon, it'll just be down to how well they clean up off their matters off the pitch, how much they can focus on the football on the pitch, because I mean, they're in a very, very tough group. They're in a group that is very, very competitive, and a group that features a lot of teams that will surprise them on their day. And if they do not hit the ground running, if they aren't able to put a lot of their differences aside, they're going to find the running very, very difficult in this Cup of Nations campaign. For Gabon, it's been a pretty solid time. I mean, yeah, they also lost in the repechage semi-finals of the World Cup, but it won't really be a bit of a disappointment. They still had a very strong qualification campaign. They took Ivory Coast all the way to the final day. Unfortunate not to beat them at home in Franceville when they had the chance. But Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who's still part of the Gabonese national team, has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, his 4-goal salvo against Kenya to keep them alive in the World Cup was a fantastic performance. They also have the likes of Mario Lemina, who scored against Nigeria in the repechage. Unfortunate though, that goal was not enough to save them. But for this Gabon side, and for him and the likes of Boanga as well, who's become a star at MLS with LAFC, you have to feel this is the last tournament. Then again, we say that about Aubameyang for every AFCON, and then somehow he seems to return. But you really feel this is the last tournament. This is their last run together. And now there has to be a contingency plan. There has to be a way forward. And Gabon hopefully have picked players that not only will they have Aubameyang and a lot of the stars of the present or the past, but now they'll have you guys of the future coming through to bleed into the national setup. It'll be very interesting to see how Gabon line up in this Cup of Nations. But they're a team that at least are on the right path. They've had a solid World Cup qualification campaign. They're in some pretty good form, and they'll definitely see some of the other teams and how the other rivals in the group are preparing, and they will definitely fancy their chances to progress into the latter parts of the tournament and even progress as top 2. So they're not a team to be slept on, are the Gabonese. And last but not least in this Cup of Nations wrap is Mozambique. The Mambas return back-to-back Cup of Nations appearances for the first time in their history after their first return in 2024, a return from the tournament for the first time since 2010. And again, it's been a fantastic campaign from the Mambas. I mean, considering how competitive African football is, it's quite an astonishing miracle that they were able to qualify in the first place. And not only now just qualify, but to keep the qualification going and to qualify again. And also with the same crop of players, it means that there's a general level of consistency. Kando, the guy in charge, the coach, has kept with his trusted soldiers and has kept the Mozambican team together, and they've kept good performances together. I mean, of course, in the World Cup qualifying, things didn't really go very well, but Cup of Nations qualification was the very least they could have expected, and the fact that they've qualified again means that there is a level of consistency, that these guys are pretty good and are pretty dangerous. I mean, these guys came back from 2-0 down to draw with Ghana, so they're a side that can turn up for the big occasions, but I feel the lack of quality will be very, very much a huge disadvantage against the sort of bigger sides in their group, and it's going to be very important for them to be solid. It's going to be very important for them to make an impact and strike where they can. But if the last tournament showed us, and this Mozambican team are not to be taken lightly as everyone says they are. They're a team that can strike, a team that can cause problems, and a team that on their day can really leave a big team with bruises all over themselves, having been taken lightly. But how I feel the group will line up though at the end, my prediction will be that Ivory Coast will top the group. Not a lot of trouble. I feel that they'll only drop about 2 points. They'll be fine. Second, though, I would give it to Gabon, because I feel Gabon would have cleaned up their act. Gabon will definitely be the more stable of the sides. Will definitely be a lot more cleaner. Cameroon, I think, will finish third. I don't think they'll have an underwhelming tournament. Maybe a massive surprise if they have an underwhelming tournament, while fourth, unfortunately, will be Mozambique, who would have put up a brave performance in all 3 of their games, but sadly won't be enough to progress. And I actually think this group will produce a wild card. It's much closer than a lot of people think it is. And that's it. That is it. That is the end of my Africa Cup of Nations preview and predictions. I know it's a pretty long video, but then again, this is a pretty big tournament. Of course, I will be covering the Cup of Nations quite extensively throughout the duration of the competition. There will be, constant uploads as the tournament goes on. I will be, of course, frequently uploading, wrapping the tournament as it goes on, and covering it as the tournament progresses, and of course previewing predictions for every round, so on and so forth into the competition. If you stuck around, you're an absolute warrior, and I heavily suggest you like, share, and subscribe leading up to this tournament. And also in the comments, leave who do you think is your favorite for the Cup of Nations, who's going to be your top scorer, who do you think will be player of the tournament, who will be the winner at the end, who do you think will be your surprise package, and who do you think will be your flop of the tournament, the big team that comes here with a lot of hype but will severely underperform and will severely disappoint. I would love to have that conversation with you guys in the comments. Of course, thank you again for sticking around, and I'll check you on the flip side. It's been your boy, the Football Otaku, and never forget, real football always wins. Check you on the flip side. Deuces. Bye bye. See you in Morocco.